Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm McKenna Jordan, and I'm the owner of Murder by the Book in Houston, Texas. We are cold, and it's been a long week, but we are very, very excited to have electricity and internet and be able to host this event tonight. I certainly have been looking forward to it, and I think that all of you watching are in for a treat. So obviously we're going to be here with Walter Mosley in conversation with Arlene Cogdill. I will go through their full bios in just a second, but before I bring them on, as those of you who are watching this join us, I want to go over a few things. As I said, we are here, we're open, the store was open today. We do have electricity and internet, and we're happy to accommodate those of you who want to come in and shop. And we're back to normal hours, weather and power permitting. We also will be back on here tomorrow night. I'll be interviewing Mark Greaney about his new Gray Man book. We just announced a pretty cool event, and we're going to be hosting Arlene Cogdill for his new book, Win, and he will actually be in conversation with his good friend, Michael J. Fox. So we'll be doing that on March 18th. You can find details on our website, murderbooks.com, along with other upcoming events and things that we have going on. We also have a book subscription plan that has been pretty popular, Murder by the Box, and that also can be found on our website or at murderbythebox.com. We hope that all of our fellow Texans are doing as well as they can be. I know that it's a little weird tonight to be hosting a virtual event when there are so many people who are struggling, but we hope those of you who are watching, if you are local, that it's a nice distraction and that you enjoy the hour away from dealing with the stress of everyday life right now. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, you can put them in the live chat. And if you're watching on Facebook, just in the regular comments, we'll get to them for the second half of the chat. I also am going to drop a link to our website, specifically to this event, which has information on Blood Grove, which is the new Easy Rollins. And we have signed book plates to go along with it for anyone who wants to order. I guess that's it for right now. Oh, one last thing, another little nuisance. We've been having some spammers show up in the comments occasionally on our events. So if someone puts a link in the comments that's redirecting you to click there to view the event, obviously the event's already what you're watching, but you do not need to give a credit card to watch any of our live events. So if it's not a link that Murder by the Book has posted to our website, don't click on it. Don't give anyone your credit card information. Okay, so back to the main reason we're here. Let me bring on Mr. Mosley. Hello, Walter.
Hello.
So I'm going to go ahead and introduce you, although I'm sure many, many people know who you are and you're the reason that they're watching. Walter Mosley is one of America's most celebrated and beloved writers. A Grand Master of the Mystery Writers of America, he has won numerous awards, including the Anisfield-Wolf Award, a Grammy, a PEN USA's Lifetime Achievement Award, and several NAACP Image Awards. His books have been translated into more than 20 languages. His short fiction has appeared in a wide array of publications, including The New Yorker, GQ, Esquire, Los Angeles Times Magazine, and Playboy, and his nonfiction has been published in the New York Times Book Review, the New York Times Magazine, Newsweek, and The Nation. He lives in New York City, but I believe you're joining us from LA tonight, correct?
I'm in Los Angeles, yeah. I got kind of stranded out here at the beginning of COVID, and, you know, it's not a bad place to be stranded.
I'm sure there are worse. You could be in Houston right now. I assure you that's worse. Okay, I'm also going to bring on our guest interviewer tonight, Arlene Cogdill. Hello, Arlene.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. So Arlene Cogdill. Arlene, is there a little bit of an echo? Are you hearing that?
Yeah. A little bit, but it's not bad.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to try to do this. If you have any audio that's coming at you, Arlene, maybe turn it down because I think it's coming back into the picture. But I'm going to go ahead and introduce, and maybe Bill can look at it behind the scenes. Let's see. Okay, Arlene Cogdill reviews mystery fiction for the Sun-Sentinel, Publishers Weekly, Shelf Awareness, Mystery Scene Magazine, and the Associated Press. Her reviews appear in more than 300 publications. She has received the 2013 Raven Award from the Mystery Writers of America, the 1999 Ellen Nehr Award by the American Crime Writers League, and the 1997 Sun-Sentinel's Pettijohn Award. Arlene is a judge for the 2019, 2020, and 2021 LA Times Book Prize in the Mystery Thriller category. And she writes some of the best reviews out there. Anytime that Arlene has a review for a book, I want to read it because I just really appreciate her taste. I frequently line up with Arlene's taste, so I guess that's patting myself on the back too. But anyway, I'm going to go away. Like I said, please pop any questions in the comments. There's no such thing as a dumb question. We will try to get to them later. And you two have a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, McKenna. Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. And again, my heart goes out to McKenna, Murder by the Book, and all the people of Houston. I hope that you get through this very quickly. And Walter, I am delighted to be talking with you again. The last time we talked is when I interviewed you when you were receiving the Grand Master Award from the Mystery Writers of America. So I'm just delighted to be here with you again.
Yeah, me too. This is great.
Yeah, Blood Grove is your 15th novel about Easy Rollins, and it's great to have him back again. In Blood Grove, Easy is now 49 years old, and a lot of things have changed in his life. And the story begins in July of 1969. He's in his detective agency when a young white man who thinks he may have killed a black man during an attack comes into his office and asks him to investigate if he did indeed kill this man. Tell us what your inspiration for Blood Grove was.
That's a really good question. I don't know. Will I be able to answer that? The inspiration, whatever it was, comes originally from thinking about veterans. Mm-hmm. The young man is a veteran, Easy is a veteran, and he identifies with him because of that. There's a closeness. Also, he knows he shouldn't be doing it. Easy often finds himself in a position that he shouldn't be doing it. And what happens is that he's going to get involved. He's going to help this young man. He identifies with lots of different people, Black people, Americans, people from Fifth Ward, Houston, Texas. He has a whole identity. And one of those identities is that he identifies with this young veteran who has PTSD, though they didn't know it at the time, after being in Vietnam. And so that was somewhere in the back of my mind. I don't think I was thinking it out loud to myself, but it was in the back of my mind, and I just kept, I followed easily through the mystery.
Well, I thought it was interesting because Blood Grove definitely becomes kind of a story about veterans. And as you say, Easy connects with this young man named Craig, and Craig has there's a great scene in there at the very beginning where he's suffering from combat fatigue. Mm-hmm. And you have a lot of rich scenes in there about veterans, such as at the Veterans Bar.
It's true. Yes. There's so many veterans and there's so many different ways to look at them. One of the guys in the bar was in World War I. Right. He's talking, to people who like him and who don't like him. Some things are about race. Other things are just, you're not a good enough soldier kind of guy. The idea is for Easy to slowly get back into the headset that he was in at the end of World War II. Mm-hmm. And it just so happens that being in this headset is going to save his life, hopefully. And it was just like it's me thinking about my father, thinking about, his life. My father told me a story about Fifth Ward. He was living there in the all through the 30s up into the early 40s when he got drafted to go to the Army. And he went to the Army, and there was about maybe about 90 people from that he knew that went in, and went to war, and they were in Africa, then Italy, then France, then Germany, and I said, well, what was it like? He said, well, what it was like, Walters, while we were there, about 9 of us died. Somebody had a heart attack, somebody was in an accident, maybe one person got killed in battle. And when he got back to Fifth Ward, everybody he knew was dead. All of his friends had died. And he realized that he was safer in World War II than he would have been at home asleep in his own bed. And that was those two things together. One, when you're coming into Europe, you're a hero to the people in Europe. You're liberating them. They love you. And then you come home and you say, you've already had that experience. Now you come home and you realize, wow, home is dangerous. And I think that was a big thing that not only Easy experienced, but now my father experienced, everybody experienced it.
Well, I thought it was very interesting because we know what happened. Have known what happens to Easy after World War II, beginning with Devil in a Blue Dress. Mm-hmm. But we've never heard about all these experiences, which I found very intriguing. Easy is almost killed by a German soldier, and that weighs on him throughout the book. It's one thing to kill a soldier, to kill the enemy, but when it's person to person, that's very different. Very rich scenes there, Walter. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you. It was so interesting to be able to write that scene because it's a scene because the war is over.
Right.
The war is done. And so he's basically now a policeman, not a soldier, not attacking. He's one of the few people who's aware. There's some people who are, drawn into battle. There's some people who are suffering from battle. And there's some people who are saying, well, listen, I'm still trying to hold on to what I think is right and what I think is wrong. And it's a hard thing to do. And that's one of the things that, following Easy through these experiences, he sees his friend Christmas Black, Fearless Jones, Mouse is certainly there. And he's trying to, do the right thing, but doing the right thing in America it's difficult. It's a very difficult thing.
Each of your books has been set, each of the Easy books has been set in a different year. And in Blood Grove, the year is 1969. And that was a very volatile time, I think, in the US. The times they definitely were changing. In many ways, you make 1969 a real character in Blood Grove. It's a time of soldiers, protests, hippies, generation gap. And also, I was struck by the fact that Blood Grove opens a month before the Manson murders, which are never mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
If you know anything about that era, July 1969, then we've got August 1969. Let's talk about that year, 1969.
All right. It was a long time ago, but
and yet it was yesterday.
I think that I didn't want to get into the Manson murders. I'm not sure if I ever will. Maybe I will. So many people are writing about that, and it's such a confusing kind of thing that I don't think that I could come up with a new way of looking at it. And it was more interesting to me to still be like in the inner city and in these among Black people and white people, among the hippies. Finally, Feather, his adopted daughter, her mother was murdered by her grandfather, and her father was also murdered by her grandfather. She doesn't know that she was a baby at the time. Mm-hmm. And now her uncle finds out that she's here in Los Angeles, and he hitchhikes across country, to come visit his niece, his niece. There's and I think in that kind of moment where you're seeing, well, there's that difference. It was like, there was hippies and there was straights. It was like, those are the two things. And, the straights, they didn't know anything. They were stupid. They didn't want to see a new world. And one of the fun things is to start to blend those kind of characters together. Easy talking to, Feather's uncle, and he's really intimidated by him in some ways. He's worried that, what's going to happen? Is he going to, be working against me and my daughter, my adopted daughter? And so on one hand, you're experiencing, the different things, white people, black people, veterans, hippies, the police, of course, who are always giving Easy trouble. And then, incredibly rich people who he gets to know along the way. And then, but also you see how they come together. I was happiest with with his friend who's, working at the hotel, who is, a white guy from Mississippi, but and he hates black people, but 5 minutes after Easy meets him and tells him that he can get him out of prison, he changes his mind. He says, "Well, I've been wrong all this time."
Mm-hmm.
There's those incredible moments that really Los Angeles offers. Los Angeles is such an odd city because it's grown so quickly that people are always mixed together. It's not like, that neighborhood is, the Italians, and that neighborhood is the Jews. This neighborhood is where the black people live, and that's where the Mexicans live. It's like that, but still, when they work, they're all coming together. And I really had a good time talking about that in this book.
Let's talk a little bit about, I was going to get to that later, but let's talk about now Los Angeles. Your novels are very strongly influenced by Los Angeles. And I think that city also helped shape you because you grew up in LA, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what is LA to you and your characters?
LA is change. Mm-hmm. It is continually changing. You say, what's LA like? Well, you mean in June or July? Or you talking about maybe December? Because it keeps changing. It keeps changing. I mean, I think all of America is, and all of the world is nowadays, because of the advancement of technology. It's so quick and it's so overwhelming. But this time, every time Easy, we meet Easy again. It might be 5 years, it might be 1 year, but if the LA feels completely different because mm-hmm. It is different. It's changing. I mean, before the Watts riots, people in LA weren't all that afraid of black people. They might not have liked them, but they weren't afraid. But after the riots, everybody's afraid. And and that goes on for a while, but then the hippie movement starts, and people are afraid of them, especially after August and Charles Manson. And it's for me, it's kaleidoscopic. It's continually changing, and Easy is continually trying to keep up with it. That's why, like a lot of the old heroes, he changes where he lives almost every book,
mm-hmm.
And he keeps trading up. I mean, he gets better and better, but it's not a place that you can know. You just have to keep riding through it and see where you end up.
And your vision of LA is different than Michael Connelly's or Robert Cray's or Denise Hamilton. I always find that very fascinating. I love LA, and I always find that fascinating how different that city is, as you just said.
Yeah.
Your novels have also delved very deep into racism, and from the very beginning of the Easy novels have shown readers the lives of a Black man in post-World War II. And very early in Blood Grove, Easy says, in America, everything is either race or money or some combination of the two. And this is kind of reinforced over and over again. Can we talk about the racism and this theme that's always in your books, as it should be?
Absolutely. I don't, even though I understand the word racism and it exists and I know about it, for me, when I'm writing about it, I'm really writing about race. Mm-hmm. Easy is, in the very beginning of the book, he solved the case. The guy couldn't pay him, but he's a rich guy, so he says, "But you hold on to my Rolls Royce until I got the money, and I'll buy it back from you." And Easy says, "Okay," but he realizes really soon that he gets stopped about every 4 or 5 blocks for driving in this Rolls Royce, and people, they don't believe it. So there's a race. Easy's in this case, he's not being racist. He's driving his car. The policemen stop him. They say, "Where did you get this car?" And he explains, and they go, "Well, we don't believe that. Let's step out. Let's check out." And they understand who Easy is, an important guy in LA. The police know who he is, but their dislike of him and their distrust of him is it's kind of paramount. And one of the things that I really enjoy talking about, a lot of people say, "Listen, Walter, Easy got stopped by the cops 8 times in this book." I don't know if it's 8, but let's say 6. And they said, "That's too much." And my answer always is, yes, it really is too much. But he did get stopped those times because he's going places that he's not going to staying in his one little neighborhood which is defined as a black neighborhood, and going to work, coming home, just living there. He ends up, he's down at the ocean. He's up in the mountains. He's in Beverly Hills. He's in Culver City. And because of that, and because of the time that he has to deal with these other people, and he dealt with it in the war. He has, he's with a close friend who kills a German officer because the German officer couldn't stop calling him nigger. Couldn't stop calling him. So he had to, the guy kind of had to kill him. It's so interesting. I mean, our notions of race and racism, our notions of, other, and Easy he comments on it some, but really the major issue is that he's experiencing it. He's experiencing something that's so ridiculous, but that defines his life, which is why he is always saying, "America, the country I both love and hate."
Right.
Yeah.
This Blood Grove shows Easy at a very different part of his life now. He has a solid business. He lives in a great place. His son is grown, married, and he's very devoted to Feather, his daughter. Is Easy happy?
Easy's usually happy.
Okay.
He's not an unhappy person, but there's something about his nature which is really tragic. I always thought the Fearless Jones novels were always comedies because at the end, it was a happy ending. They had a lot of money, maybe like a new girlfriend, something wonderful. And in Easy's, in a book of Easy's, even if you survived, if he's solving your case, even if you survive, that's worse than if you died. I mean, that's how kind of tragic it is in that way. It's not a tragedy like, the classic dramatic tragedy, but and that's the world that he experiences. But he loves it. He has a house on the roof. He's growing roses. He has a daughter who he loves and a son who he loves. He has good friends who he can share his life with. But what he works with is the ugliness of the city, the underside of the city. And that so often doesn't turn out right. Yeah. Doesn't matter what race you are, doesn't matter anything. It's just like, you get mixed up in Easy's world, and it's a world of bad luck.
Yeah. It's also, Blood Grove isn't just Easy's story. I loved how he moves through a community. He knows people where he can call in various aspects of society to help him solve the case. Of course, Mouse is there, but also Fearless Jones and other characters throughout your books. And I found that very appealing in that. I hadn't noticed that as much before, though I know that you've done that. I think for me, just this popped out more.
Yeah, I think that he's settled in his friends, at least for this year of 1969. He's doing well with them, and he feels secure. The house he's living in is safe, so he doesn't really have to worry about Feather.
Yeah.
You know, it was so much fun. I mean, putting Fearless in these books has been so much fun for me because he's such I think, a wonderful character, and it was really exciting. But like, for instance, he's out there in Palm Springs with Fearless and Lola, and all of a sudden Frank Sinatra's there, and Frank is, he has a different relationship with each one of these people.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
And it was so much fun for me to see that. But this is a moment where he's kind of fitting into his adulthood, and he understands his limitations. But I can promise you that's not going to last with him. But it's good that he had it in this book.
I love the scene with Frank Sinatra, and we're not giving away any plot points. People will still enjoy this, but when Frank comes on, that was just kind of a moment of bliss, I thought.
Well, I was very happy about that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an interesting guy, Frank Sinatra, and so's Easy, and so's Fearless, and definitely so is Lola, who you'll meet. Yes.
I have one word to say to you: Mouse. Mouse, I think he's violent, he's out of control, he's one of your most controversial characters, and yet he's also one of your most popular ones. And in Blood Grove, we also see a totally different aspect to Mouse. I never thought I'd see him in a grocery store. Why do you think Mouse is so appealing?
Well, number one, I mean, I think that for Black people specifically, but all people in America generally, most of us feel, because we come from and reside mostly in the working class, that we're not getting a fair shake. We're dealing with peoples and powers and corporations that push us aside and make us afraid. Like. Mm-hmm. That they're gonna put us in jail, they're gonna beat us up, they're gonna kill us. And Mouse, among Black people, is the only person you're gonna meet who's not afraid of anybody. He's not afraid. He doesn't care. It's not like he's gonna go search out somebody and kill him, like just for no reason. He's not a sociopath in that way, but he's like a hero. He is like really the hero of Easy's world. Easy's the hero of the novels because he's, telling the story. But anybody, listen, if you're in trouble, you want to be with Mouse.
Yeah.
And Mouse is just his ability to see something. The idea, I mean, the other thing that, it's not really giving away plot, a little bit of story, that his new girlfriend was part of the Viet Cong. Like, mm-hmm. That's like something magical, like for me, that he as tough as he is, as serious as he is, as hard-willed as he is, he's still able to change. He's able to open new doors and experience new worlds, but he's never going to give up the fact that, well, Easy, I think you're going to have to kill that dude, man. There's no way around that, And when Mouse says it, it's true. It's not like, well, it might be true, it might not be true. What do you think? He said, no, I don't think anything. Just kill him, right? And that's that kind of simplicity, and from such a complex character is really enjoyable, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One thing that I think you deserve a lot of credit for. Is there a lot of strong women in your novels, and especially in Blood Grove? Each woman, including 13-year-old Feather, really has an inner strength that comes through. And can we talk a little bit about your women characters and if they're based on anyone in particular?
I think Etta Mae Harris, who isn't much in this one, represents a lot of women from my past. Mm-hmm. My two kind of great aunts, my father's half sisters, lived in Fifth Ward in Houston and in Galveston, And they were very strong. They were very, strong in the way that one thinks about strong Black women.
Mm-hmm.
My Aunt Henrietta, when I was worried one night. I was staying at the house, down in Galveston, and it was New Year's Eve, and somebody had just gotten murdered. His girlfriend had murdered him because he wanted to go back to his wife. And I was just scared. I was like, oh my God, this is too much for me. And my father kind of made fun and said, told Henrietta, said, well, Walter's scared. And she looked at me and said, baby, are you afraid? And I said, yes, I am. She says, look, I got a 45 in my purse. Ain't nobody getting to you before they get through me, and ain't nobody getting through me. Like, there's that kind of strength, but there's other kinds that I think that are more generalized, like the Feather, the youngest woman, she's 14. She understands easy. And I think a lot of times when people write about being parents and they write about, children and adults, it's the adult is the adult and they do all the right things, and the child, doesn't understand. But she understands easy, and she understands that she has to, in some ways, look after him, take care of him, like any kid would think about their parent, because that's what they end up doing in the end. And I just to be able to talk about the person inside of the characters, even if there's some sociopathic person, which there are a few in this one. There's a person inside there who's living a life that either you're going to deal with, or you're going to run away from. And I just think that, because I'm not trying to make anybody look better or worse. I'm just trying to talk about who they are, how they're living, what they want, where they're going. Talking about Mouse's girlfriend. I remember I was watching I think Ken Burns had that documentary on Vietnam. Most of it I already knew. It wasn't that I'm not interested in it, but I kind of already knew it. But every night the U.S. Army would blow up the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Every day, every night, men and women, equal numbers of them, would come out and re-dig out the Ho Chi Minh Trail every day. It was back and forth, and there was as many women doing it as there were men, and they were working in the same way. They were the same kind of people that said, "Well, what is the relationship?" They said, "Man, no relationship. I got my shovel, I got my gun, I'm doing my work," and I think it's important to see those moments in life, to understand how, of course there's gender, roles, differences, whatever, but how they're acting with each other is always human. And if it works out, then you see a sense of equality, which is kind of beautiful, because it's not, it doesn't come out of a rule book, it comes out of those relationships, and that was my experience in LA. And so that's what I write about.
Well, one of the grace notes I thought was when Feather makes a decision that Easy realizes he's been a good parent. He's done well with his child, but she's also her own person. I thought that was a really wonderful grace note. It's a scene with her uncle that she had not met before. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to give anything away, but there was lots of those little grace notes throughout Blood Grove, which very, very, very nice.
Thank you.
How much of your own experiences are in your books? Now, I believe in Little Scarlet, you drew from your personal life of living in Watts during 1965. Mm-hmm. How much of you are in the books?
Well, that's such a hard question to answer. I think the way I think about the world and somewhat the way I see the world is certainly a major part of the books. But when I start writing about these characters, Christmas Black or John the bartender, when I'm talking, Feather or Jesus, I'm just so interested in those characters. They're not necessarily people I've known. Maybe I've had experiences that are somewhat, related to, people and how open and how much they changed when living in LA. But a lot of the stories, are made up. It's about it's about the mystery of life, right? And how we're working that out, how we can figure out how to make it through this, this kaleidoscope of actions, adventures, war, counterculture, the Black Panthers. I mean, there's so many things going on. And here you are, you're this, guy, you're this woman, you work in this building over here. But in order to get to that building, you have to pass through that whole world, reading about it in the newspaper. I think, and it's really, it's an extraordinary experience. And it is always the mystery. I mean, listen, there's a lot of crime in this book, and there's some really bad guys, and Easy is like, really kind of, he's really pressed up against the wall by people who aren't even afraid of mouse. But at the same time, he has to make it through. Those mysteries are there. But I think that the big mystery is, well, how do you make it in this life? And it's not just the crime, it's also everything else that you have to work with and deal with. You're never completely secure or safe.
And that's, I think, shows why the mystery today is, I believe, the social novel. It's not just about crime and punishment. It's not just about who did what. It's about how we live and how we deal with life and each other and the different tensions and all that.
And listen, and from the very beginning, you go back to the Maltese Falcon, and Spade is telling Bridget O'Shaughnessy about the man that he followed because he ran away from home, and he ran away from home because of an existentialist moment that he had in his life, and he went somewhere else and he started the same life. Like, just that story is so beautiful. Like, in the midst of the Maltese Falcon, it's like, wow, this is like really a novel. I think a lot of people don't recognize the literary quality of the genres, and there's some things you could never even get to unless you had a genre to buoy it up.
No, I agree. And so many of them are questions of identity. I mean, it's certainly something Easy deals with every time. I mean, I think just about every crime fiction deals somewhat level of identity. Going back to the Maltese Falcon, who were these people? What was this Falcon? Why were they together? I want to take you back to the beginning of your writing career. And I understand it started with this sentence: on hot, sticky days in southern Louisiana, the fire ants swarmed. Now, as I understand it, at the time when you wrote that, you were 33 years old, a computer program working for Mobil Oil in New York, and you were working on a Saturday. Instead of writing your program, you wrote that sentence. That's a great sentence. I don't think it's ever appeared in any of your books.
No.
But what led you from the fire ants to Easy?
Well, I wrote the sentence, and I said, wow, this sounds really good. I like the sentence. And then I said, well, it must be fiction because I've never been to Louisiana. At that time I hadn't been, and I've never seen a fire ant. So I'm making it up. So I should follow it to see what I can do. And I had not that long before read The Color Purple by Alice Walker, I have questions about that book, but the voices of the characters were so wonderful, and they were voices I knew and voices that I could breathe life into. I could use voices like that to breathe life into my characters. And so I was like, I'm going to try to do this. And because I'm from California, in California, I always say, like, if a woman is 80, and she's just retiring, anywhere in this country, you ask, her what she's going to be doing, and she'll say, well, I'm going to, look after my grandchildren and maybe, do some traveling. But in California, you say, well, I'm still pretty limber. I can still touch my toes. I think I'd like to start a basketball team of, it's like, you're never too old to do something. And that's kind of how I felt. I said, well, listen, I'm a computer programmer. My life is kind of a failure, not a terrible failure, but not any great success. And I have these stories I can write. Let me see where I can go. And, and I just kept working at it until I ended up with Devil in a Blue Dress.
I loved the movie version of Devil in a
Mm-hmm.
Blue Dress, and you've had a couple things on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
I understand you have several film projects about your novels in the works. Are there any that you can discuss?
Oh, sure. Why not? I mean,
Okay.
don't tell anybody, but I'm working on the show that John Singleton brought me into. It's called Snowfall. It's on FX, and I'm a regular writer on that show. I've been working on a thing for about Louis Armstrong, a more it's fiction, but it's also about a real life.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a book called The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray. I'm in the midst of crafting the 6 episodes that it's going to be on Apple TV. Sam Jackson has already agreed to star, so he's part of the project, and we're going to be shooting it starting on March 15th. Yeah, March 15th. And Amblin has optioned Easy Rollins for a television series, and
for a series.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So then, a lot of things, a lot of different, places. I don't know. I think John, who was a great man, I just want to say that about John Singleton. He was a great man. And, he brought me in. He said, Walter, I need somebody to back me up in that room. I don't know what they're going to be thinking. I said, okay, John, I'll sit. I can't write anything, but I'll sit in there. And for a couple of years, I didn't write. And then all of a sudden I started writing episodes. I'm an executive producer now, which is great. If you beat your head against that wall long enough, the wall will fall down, or you will, one or the other.
Has the casting been decided for the Easy series, or is that still in the works?
No. This is the very beginning. We're talking about different writers. I like writing for film and television, but I'd rather be writing novels and short stories. I have so much fun with it. Though while I've been out in California doing those jobs, it's really easy for me to write. Because I write fiction from like 5 to 8 every morning. And so it's been really easy for me to keep writing books, which is great.
Yeah. I have more questions, but McKenna says that we have a lot of questions from the audience, and I'd like to go ahead and have her come back in, McKenna, and to ask some of those questions.
All right. I think I'm unmuted. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I've just been sitting back here enjoying this discussion, and we've had a very lively group of comments. Lots of fans who are loving the conversation, so that's great. Let me get to a couple of the questions. So I thought this one was interesting. From Kim, how does it feel to have all your characters inside your head on a daily basis?
Well, in my head as ideas, I wake up in the morning and like 5 o'clock, an ideal day when I'm not doing anything else, 5 o'clock, I sit down to write, and I write for 3 hours. And while I'm writing, I'm having all this fun with these characters and what they're doing and how they're doing and where they're going and what they're saying and what's happening. And then after that's over, I just let it go. I don't think about it anymore. I don't think about them anymore. I just go on, with my life. And I go, and I just let all of that simmer in the back of my head. And when I wake up the next morning, there's more story, and I just, get involved with it.
That's so interesting because so many authors do their writing and then they say that those characters are just constantly in a conversation, or they go for a walk and they're thinking it out. And it's interesting to me that you can just you write and then you move on with life and then you revisit them the next day. It's great. Let's see. So Amir was wondering, on this specific book, did you write this in LA or New York?
I wrote it in both. I was in both places when I was writing it, going back and forth. Not because I would have been in New York normally, but I was doing all this work out here, with the show Snowfall and other things, and so I was here and I was there.
Awesome. Okay, so you've already touched on this a little, but since you asked it early on, I'm going to bring it back and see if you want to expand on it. What inspired Blood Grove?
Hmm. You know, it's so interesting because inspiration is, when the question, it makes the question, the nature of that language is, you think, okay, there's an inspiration point. That's before the book is written. So that's what it sounds like, the question. But indeed, I start writing. I said, well, I'm going to write about Easy. Okay. He's standing in the window and he's looking out there and at his back fence neighbor's yard. And they built a pretty big greenhouse back there, and he thinks they're probably growing dope in there. And he's just thinking about them. And he looks at his watch and he's thinking about what's going on. And I'm following Easy, and I'm getting into the rhythm of his life. And as I'm doing that, as things are happening, I start to get a feeling for the story. And I think this happens often with me. So I didn't know what I was going to write until I started writing it. And then after I started writing it for a while, ideas became manifested, and I became really kind of interested in these characters and what their what they were saying was true. What of what they were saying is true, and what of it was not true.
Got it. So it's it sounds like a very organic process, as opposed to, like, I read a newspaper article and let's see how Easy would deal with this. Let me outline it and write. Like, the spirit moves you. Easy takes you where the story is going to be.
Yeah.
All right. So Andy was wondering, the question's in two parts, so this isn't going to make sense, but I'll just show one half. So basically, several characters have unusual names. Is there a reason that your characters have such an unusual name?
I've always thought it is my Southern roots on my father's side. That people in the South, they have all kinds of names, and names actually mean something, and it's not just in the South. I mean, it's all over the thing, where Canelo Alvarez, he's redheaded, they're somebody like, Sonny Liston. I mean, come on now, Sonny, he could knock a hole through a wall, no trouble, and you start to feel that, that what do you call the people that you love? What do you call the people that you're afraid of? What do you call the people who are, interesting, talented, dull, whatever. And that's all and it just happens naturally. It seemed to me in my life that there were lots of people with odd names, nicknames, names that are, I mean, and you just kind of go with it.
All right. Karen was wondering, sorry, I'm literally just reading questions to you, but I'm fascinated by the responses. I think they're great. Okay, so Karen was wondering, is there a word that's a favorite of yours that you use in all your stories?
I've used the word ochre a lot, which I think is odd, but I use that word a lot. And I'm sure there is, but I don't know what it is.
All right. Well, ochre seems like one that certainly would stand out as something that isn't just the. So I'm going to take that as an answer. All right. Okay. So again, you've touched on this some, but maybe you'd like to expound a little. There are authors who write about the Black experience. How do you capture the joy and pain of being a Black man so expertly? I feel like I grew up with Easy and share his observations.
Well, I think that it was a real close relationship I had with my father, which opened up a whole world for me. And my father was a very expressive and intelligent guy. I remember one day, I was in my maybe late 20s. My father's driving us downtown because the phone company had this good cafeteria. It was really a funny thing. And, and this really, I'm not making a political statement here. I'm just going to say what my father said, which is so we're driving down the street and we're at a red light, and there's a bus stop and there's a white guy in a suit carrying a briefcase. And my father said, "You see that guy over there, Walter?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, Now, what do you think he would say to me if I walked up to him and said, listen, man, you owe me $1,000 because of what your people did to my people? And I said, well, he would probably tell you to go to hell. And he said, that's right. Light turned and we just drove off. Now, listen, this is not any kind of my opinion of reparations or anything like that, because that's another issue. Reparations is about repairing. But the idea that kind of very personal, very, very unusual kind of way of looking at things and articulating them is how I experienced being Black. I was remembering this morning, I was about, 13, 14. I was standing in my friend's backyard and there was a guy next door, a Black man, who said, so you go to school, huh? And I said, yeah. And he said, so you think you're smart? And I go, I don't know. And he says, okay, answer me a couple of questions. I said, what's that? He says, what is a man who makes and fixes shoes? And I said, well, that's a cobbler. And he said, okay, see the stones and the cement on the ground. What's that? And I said, well, that's cobblestone. And he said, you might be pretty smart. He just moved on, but it's a very kind of personalized, I'm not trying to say, well, I'm not talking about a race as far as race and relating to the white world. I do talk about that, but the most important thing is who these people are, how they're living life, what they're thinking, how they're experiencing it, how unique are they in their experience of life. And that, I think that is that's the way that we recognize these people,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as an outside observer, clearly, I think that one of the amazing things about intentionally reading books with characters who have different experiences than you do is that if the writer has put their experiences in the book in a way that you find relatable, or maybe you don't, it I don't know, illuminates their experience and makes you empathize with it in a way that you might not if you're just walking down the street, because it's all about that person, that character that you're reading about and that you're engaged with. And so in the same way that you're telling the story about the cobblestones, or your characters are living those experiences, I think that's what the readers, why we feel like we know your world and your characters, and you're so much more.
Yeah,
they connect with the person. And then that's what, then when they put the book down, especially say as a white person, those moments here and there where we've lived what the character has reading through them, that's what brings those moments to life. And that's why, it's so important to read books from different perspectives, because how else do you feel like you can see what's happening? So anyway,
that's what's great with mystery readers, because one of the great things about people reading mysteries, they're all over the place. They're reading any kind of background. It doesn't make that much difference to them, because oh wow, this is really interesting. What this character is seeing. It starts with Sherlock Holmes. I mean, he talks about the British Empire when the sun never set on it, and so that was. You knew everything. It's in India, it's in Africa, it's extraordinary. And people read it because everything becomes a mystery.
Right. Absolutely. But if you have a chance to go back and look at the comments on this, it's so clear that so many of your readers know, they know your characters. There's 30 comments about how many people love Mouse, and that's a testament to your writing and your ability to make these people feel so real. So anyway, just lots of compliments in here. Okay, so you talked about your aunts and the strength of some of the women surrounding you, but this question is actually more about your parents. Did your parents meet during or after World War II, and did any of the women characters draw on your mom or the women in her family?
I don't think not in the Easy Rawlins books. There a lot comes from my mother, but in other more my one-off literary novels. Though my parents is an interesting story. My mother was married to a very, very, very wealthy man. He was a millionaire, and my mother lived they lived in a house close to downtown LA on a private street, a street that I was on the other day. It's wild, giant mansions. And You can't get in. There's guards and stuff, and it's always been like that. And but my mother was a Trotskyite, so she got a job working in a school because she thought she needs to give back, she needs to do things, and my father was a janitor at that school, and they met, and this is how they explained to me. They didn't go into any detail, but they met, and my mother said, "Well, I went home and I told my husband. I said, I realized something today at work." And he said, "What's that?" He goes, "I don't love you." And she divorced him and married my father. I was like, and it's just, here she is, this Jewish woman. Her father's a doctor. They're from the Bronx, Grand Concourse in the Bronx, and she just met my father, and she just thought he was like the greatest thing in the world, And she goes, "I didn't love him, Walter, so I left."
Man, talk about strength, just being able to go home and say, "I don't love you. Peace out."
In this millionaire, I mean, his giant house is really like kind of wonderful life, but it didn't mean that much to her. It didn't. That stuff doesn't go so deep as one might hope.
Yeah, great story. Okay, you've also talked about this one. I'm just going to read it because it's split up oddly. But Amir was wondering, how is Easy different as a person or a man in this book than other books?
Well, I think that he's still dealing with all the the problems, having broken up with Bonnie, having almost died. He's and he's understanding. I think one of the very different things is he understands that he's not the young man he used to be, and that that he may not win the fight if he gets messed up in it. I in those ways, those are kind of little normal ways, but I think also that self-revelation is kind of one of the most important things to Easy. Learning about things, So he's not only trying to solve mysteries, he's also trying to figure out who he is through the mysteries that he's working on, through the people that he meets and changes. And so he's a lot like LA. Change is the norm, rather than now he's different. Well, he's always different. That's how I'm feeling about him. Maybe there's more a deeper thing, and I should think about that some more. And I think I will.
Okay, well, this one's an oddly specific question coming up. Will Easy's lost daughter Edna ever re-enter his life, the one that ran off with Dupree? His lost daughter. Her mother ran off with Dupree because Dupree was so mad at Easy for having killed his girlfriend. Not killed her, but maybe was the cause of her death. I really want Edna to come back, and I just haven't figured out how to do it yet. All right. And the same person was wondering about Socrates Fortlow. Are we going to see him again?
Definitely going to see Socrates. I don't know where, but I know I'm going to write about Socrates again. That book, I really it has to be the right time to write a book like that,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to pop this up here and see how you take this. Will Easy and Mouse ever come to the 22nd century?
The 22nd century, right? So we're in the 21st now. That's so interesting. I mean, it's a good question because will I ever write a science fiction book about Easy and Mouse? And it's possible. I've written a whole bunch of them, so I might do that. But I don't. They're not going to live. Right this year, Easy would be 100. And I think that's a little old for him to be. I could write about him at 93. I could write about him in 2017, maybe, but not 2013. But I'm not, I don't think I'd go that far. I don't think I go another, I don't even think they'll make it to today,
All right. I will say, I think that's the last question that we have in the comments, so I'm going to turn it back over to Arlene real quick, but we did have someone comment that she smiles when she sees the words ochre and hail in every book, so perhaps hail is your other word. So I'm going to say Hale. Hale. Yeah, not like a storm. All right. So, we do have one quick one. Any plans on another Leonid Mcgill book soon?
Well, I just came out with one, Trouble is What I Do. Certainly there will be another one. I'm not sure when. I think the next mystery I'm going to write is going to be a King Oliver mystery, the one that was in that book, Down the River Unto the Sea. But definitely there'll be another Leonid, yes. No question.
All right. Arlene, you have another couple questions?
I do. One is, I have to know, what happened to your finger?
Oh my God! I was cutting a bagel.
Oh, okay.
And I cut it really deeply.
Ooh.
I mean, it was bad. It was bleeding. I couldn't let it go. I had to get somebody to come get me and take me to the emergency room, and they sewed it up and stuff.
My goodness!
It was really, something. Yeah, there's a reason that there's that much gauze on this thing. It was really something. But that was. And yesterday I got the second shot of the COVID vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
But then I did this thing, and so they had to numb the finger so they could sew it up. And then they said, "Well, when's the last time you had a tetanus shot?" And I said, "I have no idea. It could be 30 years. I don't know." So they gave me a tetanus shot. So I got all kinds of injections yesterday.
Lucky you.
I think we just have a couple more minutes, right, McKenna?
Yeah.
Who do you read? Who are you reading right now? Is there any author that has really struck your fancy?
I'm really kind of taken with Sean S.A. Cosby.
Yes.
Blacktop Wasteland. I think it's a really interesting, really good writer who I think is bringing back Black Southern noir. So actually starting to open up the Black Southern experience in a way that it's not like Toni Morrison or Alice Walker or somebody else doing that in a more kind of philosophical kind of mystery, but like the everyday life of people living in the South, Black people and whites living in the South, and I enjoy the writing, and I enjoy him. I think he's a good guy. He has a really interesting story himself, and he loves you can always tell when somebody loves writing books. Some people love telling you things. I mean, and they're not that interesting. But the people who really love writing books and literature, and they're feeling it, they're living in it. It's a great moment.
I think we're at an hour. McKenna, I think, I know this time flew by. This has been great. McKenna, I think we need to let Walter get back.
Yep, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. I saw a question there. Who's that writer? That writer is S.A. Cosby, and his first book is Blacktop Wasteland. He has a new book, Razor Top. I don't know why I now can't speak. Razor Blade Tears.
Something like that.
Yeah, but Blacktop Wasteland is absolutely phenomenal, and I think you're going to be in conversation with him maybe tomorrow night, right, Walter?
I think so. Yeah.
So wherever that is, tune in. But I will drop a link to Blacktop Wasteland. We have signed book plates for it. We've all been huge fans of it, and it is absolutely warranted praise. So I will be right back there on YouTube with that link as soon as we wrap this up. I do want to say, again, we have signed book plates from Mr. Mosley. We have copies of Blood Grove, and we have the link in the comments if you would like to order. Thank you, Oline. So, again, I just said thank you, but thank you for interviewing. It was a delightful conversation, and I'm so glad that you found the time to do this tonight.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Lots of fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
and
Walter.
Thank you, Walter. And thank you, everyone who's watching. Here's hoping for a calmer few days in Texas. And for those of you watching elsewhere, I wish you a good evening. Thanks, everyone, and bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Walter. Thanks, McKenna.
Bye, Aline.
Okay. And